Child abuse and neglect are all too common in the United States.
Not say no to your father!
The National Child Abuse and Neglect Data System reports that each year over the last decade, there were about 6 million reports of suspected abuse and neglect to Child Protective Services. After investigation, it was determined that there were almost 900,000 substantiated cases of abuse and neglect. Of these, about 63% were determined to be cases of neglect. Another 24% were determined to be physical abuse or emotional maltreatment, and 9% were determined to be sexual abuse. These percentages have remained fairly constant for many years. Everyone in healthcare must remain aware of this continuing problem and stay alert to recognize the signs of abuse and neglect. This is the first of 3 programs on recognizing child abuse. This program will cover physical abuse. Later programs will cover neglect, including emotional abuse, and sexual abuse.
Do you hear me? Do you hear me?
Statistics suggest that almost 2,500 children are abused every day. And worse, more than 1,400 children are estimated to die each year of abuse and neglect. More than 3/4 of the fatalities are infants under 4 years old. Physical abuse can take many forms. Direct physical abuse, such as broken bones, visceral injuries, and brain injuries from blows or from severe shaking. Cutaneous injuries, often the result of prolonged beatings or excessive punishment, may manifest themselves as severe bruising, burns, or bites.
No, he just fell. He fell down.
These injuries are often explained as being caused by suspicious falls and accidents. Even those children who survive abuse are likely to suffer some form of permanent physical injury or emotional trauma, and may themselves grow up to be abusers of their own children in a recurring cycle of violence.
Mommy, I'm not tired. Kayla, I've had it up to here with you. Go to bed or you're going to get it.
Boys and girls are almost equally at risk of physical abuse, though girls are 4 times more likely to be sexually abused. Women are a larger percentage of abusers, probably because they are also more commonly the primary caretakers. No community is immune, from the richest to the poorest.
Why can't you listen?
Child abuse crosses all socioeconomic, racial, and religious boundaries. It happens in all neighborhoods. The federal minimum definition of abuse and neglect is any recent act or failure to act on the part of a parent or caretaker which results in death, serious physical or emotional harm, sexual abuse or exploitation, or an act or failure to act which presents an imminent risk of serious harm. Virtually all healthcare providers are required to report suspected abuse if they have reason to suspect that a child is being abused. Physicians, nurses, hospital personnel, dentists, medical examiners, mental health professionals, as well as school and law enforcement personnel are all mandated reporters. Failure to report suspected child abuse may leave the professional open to prosecution and malpractice suits. In 18 states, anyone who suspects abuse is required to report it. Most states also offer immunity from civil suits to all good faith reporters of suspected child abuse. You should learn the child abuse and neglect statutes of your state. In order to report suspected abuse, you need to learn the signs and symptoms.
I'm a little concerned about this.
The first key to recognizing physical abuse is the fact that the injuries often present as more severe and more purposeful than those that could be inflicted by other children or in normal play, suggesting that an adult may have caused them. Pay close attention to recognizing patterns of injury.
My husband was home with him and...
Also pay close attention to the history given to explain the injury. If the adult caretaker is evasive or contradictory, the story changes abruptly or is implausible, or if the child's own explanations seem implausible or fear-filled, abuse must be suspected.
I think he fell. Because he fall a lot?
Caretakers will frequently claim the injuries are
He
accidents.
gets tired or has shoes on that are too big. Or...
Any injuries you observe must be compared with the developmental age of the child to help decide whether they might be accidental. For example, the reported history that a 2-month-old has supposedly crawled to and then fallen down a staircase is suspicious on its face. A 2-month-old baby is not likely to be able to crawl at all in order to reach a staircase. Similarly, it is unlikely that any mentally normal child would burn himself repeatedly with a cigarette or other object. It is simply too painful, and it is equally unlikely that toddlers could hit one another with sufficient force to break bones. There are some injuries and injury patterns that are suspicious in themselves and immediately suggest abuse, and these are worth studying in some detail. In terms of soft tissue injuries, consider the developmental ability of the child. Non-ambulatory children rarely